inviting me to share how I came to join the collective voice and actions defending Julian Assange and why it became so important to me. Thankfully, when I joined the fight 2 years ago, there was an established solidarity campaign that had been compassionately sustained for many years by a wonderfully international community of supporters. So it was great to also find a true expression of London's diversity and to be a part of that. It was one of the things that inspired me to join. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, spoke about heroism and risk in his New Year message and said, "Christian faith doesn't promise us a comfortable life. Christ promises peace, purpose and joy, but not comfort." Those words took me back 7 years ago when I worked for the NHS as an administrator for a team of psychiatrists. One day, one of the doctors said something that always stayed with me. She said that she believed that a lot of our mental anguish comes from a difficulty in accepting that life is full of uncomfortable moments and that they never end. And this was a real moment of clarity for me, and I suddenly realised that I, perhaps like many others, had avoided uncomfortable moments in my life, and this was the thing that was getting in the way of living a full life of active participation. So I began to see the only thing you can change about uncomfortable moments is the way that you look at them. Perception is an incredible tool. I wasn't part of any faith at that time, but to further explore the uncomfortable, I started to go to a local Buddhist centre regularly, developing and exercising a free and curious mind, something that should be a basic right for everyone. London has always offered me great opportunities to expand my mind, and I really feel blessed for that. It's a place uniquely rich in that way. One opportunity I came across was a free education in the humanities offered by the IF Project, a free university run by a network of academics who volunteered their time and expertise. So they too believed in this fundamental human right to explore the world around us, and it became another source of nectar, and I relished the opportunity with thanks and wholeheartedness. It also made me aware of how vital these spaces were. It was an incredibly liberating experience for the mind, and gradually I sensed the fog lifting. I began to reflect on the fact that my mind had been partially held captive to a deeply unhealthy and corrupt system. And this led to a more liberated existence, but also a sense of agency, a sense of empowerment. And the more free I became, the more I wanted others to know freedom. A few years ago, I came to the Christian faith and began to spend times of reflection and inspiration at my local church, St. John of Jerusalem in Hackney. I also began to visit many faith-based international communities. Faith-based intentional communities and international. It was within this new world that I first became aware of the solidarity campaign for Julian Assange. I was at the Catholic Worker Farm in Rickmansworth, a place that offers housing and support to women and children seeking refuge in a foreign country, mostly fleeing war and persecution. It was there I was handed a flyer for an upcoming vigil that was being held outside the Ecuadorian embassy, where Julian was in arbitrary detention. In the weeks that led up to the vigil, I looked into the whole situation because at the time I wasn't aware of the facts. I compared reports and articles and was sent down many rabbit holes in the process. I watched documentaries, I heard speeches, and began to enter into discussions about the situation with others. And I remember thinking that if people can't be persuaded into getting involved through concern for Julian, an innocent man suffering torture, then maybe they could be encouraged into creating a project about misinformation and propaganda through the studying of the situation. By the time the vigil came around, I was sure why I was there. WikiLeaks had exposed the secrets of imperialism and a violent system that can't be trusted with the power it holds on to at any cost. And that cost is and continues devastating, destroying, and terrorizing life on Earth. I was there for a human being that was being treated like a criminal for exposing truth. People shouldn't have to die for that. Like it says on the back of my t-shirt, we don't want Julian to be our martyr, and neither does he. And Julian really symbolises the heroism and risk-taking that the Archbishop Justin Welby spoke of in his New Year message. So I'd begun to spend a lot of time around lifelong resistors, mostly living out their faith through the Catholic worker tradition. I think radical love, or maybe we can call it real love, is Christianity's true heart. The Reverend Donald Greaves believes churches should be places of dissent and says Jesus wasn't exactly into garden parties. He was regarded a nuisance. In the development of a new life of activism informed by my faith, I began to see the importance of showing up at solidarity events, building community, and the many challenges that can bring. Realising capabilities and limitations. For example, knowing when to let the right people articulate the details and facts of the situation, because things can easily become complicated. And so I learned that requires an economy of language in order to keep it simple. And that's something I struggle with. But thankfully, there are those here tonight who can do that. And of course, there is a real need to show the clarity within the situation to others who are in the dark about it. I always aim to plant seeds of curiosity in people through conversation and provide them with signposts to go and look into themselves, to go and look into the situation themselves, realising that there was no point in getting angry or frustrated with people who, like me a few years ago, weren't aware of all the facts. Sometimes just wearing a WikiLeaks t-shirt or a badge or a sticker can bring about natural conversations and questions at the bus stop or at the shops. So I think it's all about creating space for exercising and nourishing our free mind and finding positive ways and possible ways to communicate the situation to others. I'd like to give voice to the now silenced aspect of Julian's life by sharing some words he spoke on BBC Radio in 2014. He said, "As our governments know more and more about us, we know less and less about them. The policy, as always, is to channel the decisive information upwards, never downwards. Today, remember that it's good to seek to empower the powerless through knowledge and to drag the machinations of the powerful into the daylight. We must be unapologetic about that most basic of humanities, the desire to know." Julian goes on to describe Christ as one of history's great activists and quotes the Gospel of Luke and Matthew. "There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. What you have said in the dark will be heard in the daylight, and what you have whispered in the ear in the inner rooms will be proclaimed at last, from rooftop to rooftop." Julian's creation, WikiLeaks, uses the method of transparency, and its goal is justice. Justice for many throughout the world, and justice for our planet. Truth, if it's allowed to breathe, can prevent further damage, destruction, and terror. It can give people the right to choose what kind of world they want to live in and what patterns they want to be part of. In a book of Celtic Christian reflections, it says, "The Trinity is a love affair between three, each receiving the other in love, the continuous flowing action of a God of patterns. The patterns have no end, just as God has no end. God is eternal." Human rights lawyer Renata Avila spoke recently at an event that looked at digital colonialism, and she spoke about patterns of corruption and about the importance of capturing those patterns of corruption. It's important to capture them because then we can understand them. And WikiLeaks, of course, does this. Its huge library of accurate information is used by historians, journalists, professors, and many who have done positive things with the information. Its potential was and is revolutionary. So I think it's about choosing whether to be entangled in lies or liberated by truth, entangled in war or believing in peace. Will we stand with the drum of destruction or the drum the galloping horse makes, making the majestic heartbeat of the earth audible, protecting life? I was recently at a service at Chelmsford Cathedral where the Reverend Kate Moore's words struck me. She said, "We clearly don't live in a world where people are free and living abundant lives. We hear of poverty, injustice and disaster, and of those seeking power, destroying the most vulnerable in society. We might look at our own cities in despondence, just as the ancient Israelites did when returning to the ruins of Jerusalem. But just as the seeds growing in Isaiah, we have to hope in something better emerging, and also be active participants in restoration of other people's dignity and potential. By joining the fight to end the torture and long ordeal of Julian Assange, to free him so that he can heal with his family and friends, to stop a US extradition where a fair trial will be impossible, and to support the ongoing mission of WikiLeaks, I feel I am living out my faith through contemplative action and actively participating in restoration of other people's dignity and potential, and my own. I think this could be an opportunity for all people of faith to be involved in the very things we pray for in our churches, in our mosques, in our synagogues, or in the great stillness, or in the wilds of nature. Because this cause encapsulates so much of what we hope for and what we wait for. We can unite in demanding freedom, justice, truth and dignity for all, and to help free Julian, the man who developed a way to expose the brutality that robs people of life and of truth. Thank you.